The desert of HFY 7 stretched beneath a sky bruised purple with twin suns, where the wind didn't whisper. It howled, carrying sand like ground glass across dunes that rolled forever, broken only by the jagged bones of crashed starships and the silent, rusted husks of war machines left behind by the last great clash between the Zorati Dominion and the rebel free clans. It was a place where life clung like lichen to rock, where even the scavenger beetles moved with caution, sensing the lingering static of plasma fire in the air. I was Kyron Voss, ex-military engineer turned reluctant salvage hunter, my boots sinking into the fine blue-tinged dust as I pried open the cracked hull of a Zorati scout drone, my breath fogging the inside of my helmet, the recycled air tasting faintly of rust and regret. I hadn't come here for glory. I'd come because the last payment from the syndicate had vanished, and the debt collectors didn't care if you were starving or just tired. I was tired. My left arm still ached from the ion burn I'd taken 6 months back on the ice moon of Nix 9, and my right hand trembled slightly, not from age, but from the ghost of too many close calls. I didn't believe in fate. I believed in fuel ratios, pressure seals, and the cold math of survival. But fate, it turned out, didn't care what I believed. I heard the giggle before I saw her. It was a sound so bright, so utterly out of place. It cut through the desert's grim hum like a chime in a graveyard. I turned slowly, my plasma wrench still clutched in my grip, scanning the dune crest with narrowed eyes. There, half buried in the windswept sand, was a child. Not a child of any species I recognized. She was no taller than my knee, her skin a luminous cobalt, smooth as polished sapphire, glowing faintly in the dimming light of the setting suns. Her hair cascaded down her back in thick, flowing waves of the same shade, shimmering with tiny, bioluminescent flecks that pulsed like distant stars. She wore no armor, no suit, just a simple tunic woven from what looked like living vines, threaded with threads of silver light that shifted color as she moved. Her eyes, large and almond-shaped, were the color of liquid mercury, wide with wonder, and she was grinning at me as if I just appeared with a basket of candy instead of a broken drone and a cracked helmet. Behind her, standing like a statue carved from moonlight and storm, was her mother. The alien woman was tall, regal, her frame slender but powerful, every line of her body radiating quiet authority. Her blue skin bore intricate, swirling tattoos that glowed faintly. A language of light, I guessed, telling stories older than human empires. Her hair, longer than her daughter's, flowed like a river of midnight water, threaded with strands of gold that shimmered like captured lightning. She wore a high-collared robe of woven energy, shifting colors with her breath, and her bare feet rested on the sand as if it were sacred ground. In her left hand, she held a staff of black crystal, humming softly, its tip glowing with a slow, steady pulse. She did not smile. She did not move, but her eyes, deep, ancient, and filled with a sorrow that seemed to carry the weight of lost worlds, were fixed on me. The girl, oblivious to the gravity of the moment, took one wobbly step forward, then another, her tiny fingers clutching a half-melted toy drone she must have dug out of the wreckage. She stumbled, fell, and rolled in the sand, laughing like a bell ringing in a storm. Then she looked up at me, and she crawled, not toward her mother, not toward safety, toward me. She reached my boot, grabbed the frayed lace with both hands, and tugged. I looked down. She beamed. Her teeth were small and pearlescent, slightly too many, but perfect. "Papa," she said. The word came out in a soft, musical trill, translated instantly by my helmet's neural implant. Not father, not guardian, not protector, Papa. My throat went dry. My hand tightened around the wrench. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, some rational, weary, practical thing about how humans didn't just get adopted by alien children on war-torn deserts, how this was some kind of psychological trick, a neural lure, a Zorati trap. But then the mother stepped forward. She didn't speak at first. She simply knelt. Not in submission, not in prayer, but in acknowledgement. Her staff lowered. The glowing tattoos on her skin brightened, swirling into patterns I recognized from old galactic archives. The sigils of the Velani, a lost matriarchal lineage rumored to bond with outsiders through a ritual called the Soul Song, a ceremony only performed when a child's spirit, in its purest form, chose a parent not by blood, but by resonance. The girl reached up, her tiny hand brushing the cracked visor of my helmet. And then, in a voice that carried across the dunes like wind through crystal chimes, the mother spoke. "My child has chosen you as her father, human." I didn't laugh. I didn't run. I didn't faint. I just stood there, covered in dust, holding a wrench with a blue-skinned alien girl clinging to my boot and her mother, the last queen of the Vellani, according to the whispered legends. Looking at me like I was the answer to a prayer no one else had dared to utter. The girl, whose name I would later learn was Lumi, refused to let go. She clung to my leg as if I were the only solid thing in a universe that had forgotten how to hold still. When I tried to gently pry her fingers loose, she whimpered. A sound so heartbreakingly small it cracked something inside me I hadn't known was broken. I scooped her up anyway, against every instinct screaming that this was a trap, a bioweapon, a psychic lure. She smelled like rain on warm stone and something sweet, like crushed moon blossoms. She nestled against my chest, her tiny fingers curling into my tunic, and her bioluminescent hair dimmed slightly, as if sighing in relief. The queen, whose name was Solara, rose slowly, her staff now resting against her shoulder. She did not look at me with suspicion. She looked at me with the weary acceptance of someone who had waited too long for a miracle and had almost stopped believing in them. "We are hunted," she said simply, her voice low, melodic, each word falling like a pebble into still water. "The Dominion still seeks the Heartstone. They believe it lies within the bloodline of the Vellani. They believe it can be extracted. They believe children are easier to break than queens." I didn't know what a Heartstone was. I didn't care. I was more worried about the fact that my oxygen reserves were at 42%, my suit's thermal regulation was failing, and I had no idea how to feed a blue alien toddler. Lumi, however, had no such concerns. She reached into her tunic and pulled out a small, glowing seed, no bigger than a walnut, and held it out to me like an offering. "For Papa," she chirped. I stared at it, pulsed gently, warm to the touch. My helmet scanner flickered, then froze. Unknown organic resonance. Biological signature. Non-native. Energy output. Stable. Potential high. "Is that food?" I asked, voice cracking. Solara's lips twitched, just slightly. A smile. A real one. "It is the seed of echoes. It sings to those who are meant to hear." I didn't ask what that meant. I put it in my pocket. We walked. Not toward the nearest settlement. Not toward the ruins of the old Vellani temple, which Solara pointed to with a nod. We walked away, into the deeper dunes, where the wind grew colder and the sand turned to glass underfoot, shaped by ancient energy storms. Lumi slept against my chest, her breath slow and rhythmic, her hair pulsing softly, like a heartbeat. Solara walked ahead, silent, her staff leaving faint trails of light in the sand behind her, as if she were stitching a path only she could see. By the time the twin suns vanished and the twin moons rose, silver and violet, casting the desert in an eerie, ethereal glow, we reached the ruins. They weren't ruins in the way I expected. They were alive. Towering spires of crystalline stone, carved with flowing glyphs that shimmered and shifted like living ink, rose from the sand like the ribs of a buried god. Vines of pure energy curled around them, blooming with flowers that chimed when the wind passed through them. Bridges of light arched between towers, and below, a pool of liquid silver reflected the moons, rippling with images I couldn't quite make out. Faces, cities, battles, laughter, tears. "This was our home," Solara said, her voice softer now, almost tender, "before they came with their fire and their lies." Lumi stirred in my arms, blinking sleepily. "Papa, see?" she whispered. I looked down at her. "See what?" She pointed a tiny finger at the pool. "The ones who love you." I frowned. "There's no one there." Solara stepped closer. "You do not see them because you have not yet learned to listen." I didn't understand, but I held her tighter. That night we camped beneath the largest spire. Solara wove a canopy of light from her staff, creating a dome of warmth and quiet. She offered me water, clear, cool, and tasting faintly of mint and ozone. I drank it. It didn't taste like recycled sludge. Tasted like peace. Lumi, exhausted, curled into the crook of my arm, her tiny fingers wrapped around my thumb. She murmured something in her language. A lullaby, I guessed, her voice soft as falling stars. I didn't sleep. I watched the moons, and I wondered what kind of man I was, that an alien queen would trust me with her child. The next morning, I woke to the sound of laughter. Lumi was standing on the edge of the silver pool, balancing on one foot, her hair glowing bright blue, her tunic fluttering in the windless air. She was trying to reach a floating orb of light that danced just above the water's surface. "Papa, catch!" she cried. I groaned, rubbing my eyes. "I'm not catching floating lights, Lumi. I'm a salvage hunter, not a circus performer. She pouted. But Papa must catch. It's the song of welcome. Solara appeared beside me, holding a small, woven basket filled with fruits that shimmered like opals. The orb is not a toy, Chiron. It is a memory, one of the first she ever made. I blinked. She made it. Solara nodded. When she was born, during the last great storm, she sang a song into the wind. The Heartstone responded. This orb is the echo of that song. It only appears when she is happy, and it only stays when someone worthy holds it. I stared at the orb. It pulsed gently, swirling with colors, blue, gold, silver, and something deep warm, like the inside of a sunset. I sighed. Fine. I set Lumi down gently, took a breath and ran. I leapt. My fingers brushed the orb. It didn't fly away. It sank into my palm. Heat surged through me, not painful but overwhelming. Images flashed behind my eyes. A city of floating gardens, a woman singing under twin moons, a child's laughter echoing through halls of crystal, a man in armor kneeling before a throne, his face hidden, but his voice clear. She will be the bridge. Then silence. I gasped, staggering back. Lumi clapped her hands. Papa heard it. Solara's eyes were wet. She did not choose you because you are strong, she said. She chose you because you are kind, and because you carry silence inside you. The kind that listens. I didn't know what to say, so I picked Lumi up again, and I held her. That was the day I realized I wasn't just hiding from debt collectors anymore. I was running from something worse. I was running from the idea that I might actually belong somewhere. The Dominion found us 3 days later. They came at dawn, in 3 sky skimmers shaped like predatory birds of metal and fire, their engines screaming like dying dragons. They didn't land. They didn't negotiate. They dropped. 5 soldiers, all clad in black alloy armor, their faces hidden behind masks that glowed red with internal heat, their weapons humming with plasma cores tuned to disrupt organic resonance. Zorati enforcers. Elite, ruthless, trained to erase any trace of the Velani bloodline. One of them landed on the edge of the pool, his boot crushing a cluster of singing flowers. He raised his weapon. Solara of Vakes, he barked, his voice distorted, mechanical. The Heartstone is not yours to keep. Surrender the child. And the human. He will be terminated as collateral. Lumi buried her face in my chest. Solara stepped forward, her staff glowing brighter now, the glyphs on her skin blazing like fire. You come for a child, she said, her voice calm, but colder than the void between stars. You come for a song, but you do not understand what you hunt. The enforcer laughed, a dry, hollow sound. The Heartstone is a myth, a fairy tale for dying worlds. We know what it is, a neural amplifier, a weapon that can rewrite consciousness. We will take it, from her, from the child, and we will make sure you watch. He raised his weapon. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I just moved. I shoved Lumi behind me, pulled the plasma wrench from my belt, my only weapon, and charged. It was stupid. It was insane. It was the most human thing I'd ever done. The enforcer barely reacted. He flicked his wrist, and a pulse of energy shot out. Blue-white, searing, meant to vaporize flesh. I threw the wrench. It wasn't a perfect throw. It wasn't even close. But the wrench, forged from salvaged Velani alloy, reacted to the pulse. It sang. A high, pure tone rang out as the wrench spiraled through the air, deflecting the pulse sideways, sending it crashing into the ground, where it exploded in a shower of molten sand. The enforcer staggered back. His mask flickered. He looked at the wrench, then at me. You carry Velani metal. I didn't answer. I picked up another piece of debris, a broken piece of drone hull, and threw it. It didn't deflect. It bent, like it was alive. The other 4 enforcers landed, forming a ring around us. Solara closed her eyes. She began to sing, not with her voice, with her body. Her tattoos flared. The ground beneath us trembled. The silver pool erupted into the air, rising like liquid glass, forming a dome around us. The singing flowers exploded into light, weaving into threads that spiraled into the sky. The spires hummed, their glyphs flaring, and the air itself began to vibrate. The enforcers raised their weapons. They fired. The energy bolts struck the dome, and shattered. Not exploded. Shattered. Like glass. The shockwave threw me back. I hit the ground hard. Lumi screamed. Solara fell to her knees. Her glow dimmed. Her skin flickered. She was bleeding, not blood, but light. Tiny threads of silver and blue escaped from her wrists, her neck, her chest. She's using the Heartstone, I realized, to protect us. No, Solara gasped, struggling to rise. I am giving it to her. I looked down. Lumi was floating, not by force, by choice. Her hair blazed like a comet. Her eyes were no longer mercury. They were galaxies. The orb I'd caught, now glowing white-hot, floated above her palm, spinning, expanding, growing. The enforcers hesitated. One stepped forward. Destroy the child, he ordered. They fired. A dozen beams of plasma. A wall of death. Lumi didn't move. She raised her hand, and the beams stopped. They froze in midair. Then, slowly, they reversed. They flew back. One by one, they struck the enforcers, not killing them, unmaking them. Their armor cracked. Their masks dissolved. Their bodies turned to dust, fine, glowing blue dust, that rose into the air and formed shapes. Faces, dozens of them. Velani faces. Mothers, fathers, children, soldiers, lovers. They floated in the air, silent, radiant, watching. The last enforcer fell to his knees, his face now visible, old, scarred, eyes wide with terror. I didn't know, he whispered. We were told. She was a weapon. Solara stood, weak, her light fading. She was never a weapon, she said. She is a bridge. The dust formed a single word in the air. Papa. It hovered over me. I looked down at Lumi. She was crying. Tiny, silent tears that glowed like stars as they fell. And then she reached out. Not to her mother. Not to the ghosts. To me. Papa, she whispered. I knelt. I pulled her close. And I held her. The enforcer's dust drifted away, carried on the wind, becoming part of the desert. The dome faded. The pool settled. The spires dimmed. Solara collapsed into my arms. She was cold. Her light was gone. Her tattoos were fading. Her breathing was shallow. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to save her. I didn't know how to be a father. Lumi pressed her forehead to her mother's, and she began to sing. Not the lullaby. Not the song of echoes. Something deeper. Something older. Her voice didn't sound like a child's. It sounded like the wind through 1,000 trees. It sounded like the birth of a star. The ground trembled. The silver pool rose again. This time it didn't form a dome. It formed a cradle. Solara floated into it. Her body glowed faintly. Her tattoos returned. Not as scars, but as living vines, curling around her, weaving into her skin, into her hair, into her very soul. Her eyes opened. Not with weakness, with wonder. She looked at me, then at Lumi, then at me again. She has chosen you, she whispered. Her voice now clear, strong, alive. But you must choose her. I didn't understand. Then she reached out, her fingers brushing my chest, just above my heart. And I felt it. A warmth, a pulse, connection. Not mental, not technological, biological. The Heartstone. It wasn't inside her. It was inside her. And now it was inside me. I gasped. Images flooded me. Not memories. Possibilities. I saw Lumi, grown tall, standing on a new world. Her hair like a nebula. Her voice calming wars. I saw her laughing, holding a human child in her arms. I saw myself old, gray-haired, sitting beside her on a porch under twin moons, watching her teach her daughter how to make flowers sing. I saw us. Not as conquerors, not as refugees, not as strangers. As a family. Solara smiled. She is not a weapon, she said. She is a beginning. Then she kissed Lumi's forehead, and her body turned to light. Not gone. Transformed. She became a single, brilliant seed. Lumi reached out and caught it. She held it to her chest. And she whispered, Papa, we are home now. I looked around. The desert was silent. The ruins were quiet. The wind carried the scent of blossoms. I looked down at my daughter, my blue-skinned, blue-haired, galaxy-eyed daughter, and I realized something. I wasn't running anymore. I had a home, and I had a family, and I had no idea how to raise an alien child who could sing stars into being. But I was going to try. We left the desert that day. I carried Lumi on my back, her arms wrapped around my neck, her head resting against my shoulder, her hair glowing softly like a lantern. I wore the seed Solara gave me, tucked into a pouch around my neck, pulsed warm against my skin. I didn't know where we were going. I didn't care. We had no ship, no supplies, no plan. But we had each other. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. We walked, past the broken war machines, past the glass dunes, past the silent, singing flowers, and into the horizon, where the sky was changing, where the stars were waiting, and where, I knew with a quiet certainty that settled deep in my bones, we would build a new world, not for revenge, not for power, not for survival, but for love, and laughter, and the sound of a little girl singing to the moon. And I, Kyron Voss, former salvage hunter, failed soldier, and now, impossibly, father to a child of stars, would spend the rest of my life learning how to be worthy of her. The journey would be long. The dangers would be many. The Dominion would hunt. The galaxy would doubt. But I had a daughter who could make flowers bloom with a whisper. And that was enough. It had to be, because she believed in me. And for the first time, I believed in me too. We thought we'd left the desert behind, but the desert hadn't finished with us. 3 days into our trek toward the rumored orbital relay station in the Crimson Rift, a place where I hoped to scavenge a transponder and signal a neutral freighter, we stumbled into a mirage that refused to vanish. It shimmered too steadily, glowed too evenly. Lumi tugged my sleeve, her voice hushed. "Papa, that's not sand." She was right. It wasn't sand. It was glass. But not the kind forged by lightning or plasma strikes. This glass pulsed faintly, embedded with veins of iridescent circuitry that snaked beneath the dunes like roots. The ground hummed underfoot, a low, rhythmic thrum that made my fillings ache. I knelt, brushing away the fine blue dust. Beneath it lay a hatch, circular, seamless, ringed with glyphs that matched those once on Solara's skin. The Heartstone's symbol. Lumi pressed her palm to it. The hatch opened with a sigh. Cool air rushed out, smelling of ozone and something floral, like petals dipped in static. A staircase spiraled down into darkness, lit by soft blue orbs that brightened as we descended. I tightened my grip on the plasma wrench, now more a relic than a weapon, and held Lumi close. She wasn't afraid. Her eyes gleamed with recognition. "This is grandmother's song," she whispered. We emerged into a cavern so vast it held its own weather. Mist curled around floating islands of black stone, each blooming with luminous flora that chimed in invisible currents. Bridges of woven light spanned the chasms, and in the center, suspended in midair like a second sun, hung a crystal heart, translucent, veined with gold, pulsing in time with Lumi's breath. "The Heartstone," I breathed, but it wasn't alone. Seated on a throne of interwoven vines and starlight was a woman. Not Solara, older. Her skin was the deep indigo of twilight, her hair white as frozen flame, braided with strands of silver and obsidian. Her eyes were closed, her hands folded over a staff older than ruins, carved with constellations that moved. She opened her eyes. They were voids filled with galaxies. "Kyron Voss," she said, her voice not one voice but many. Echoes layered over whispers layered over thunder. "You carry my granddaughter, and you carry my daughter's light." Lumi squirmed down and ran, not hesitantly but joyfully, into the woman's arms. "Great-grandmother," the woman, Orithra, last matriarch of the Villani bloodline, smiled. "You sang well, little spark." Then her gaze returned to me, cold, assessing. "You think you are her father because she chose you," she said. "But choice is not enough. Bond is not enough. The Heartstone demands sacrifice. And you, human, you are fragile, temporary." I met her stare. "I don't care about the Heartstone. I care about her." Orithra's lips thinned. "Then prove it." She rose, floating an inch above the ground, and gestured toward a bridge that hadn't been there a moment before. "Beyond that bridge lies the Chamber of Echoes. There, every truth you have ever hidden will walk toward you in flesh. Every lie you've told yourself will speak your name. If you return with your mind intact and your heart unbroken, you may stay. If not, the stone will erase you. Not your body, your memory, from every mind, from every record. You will have never existed." Lumi grabbed my hand. "Papa, don't go." I knelt, brushing her glowing hair from her eyes. "I have to." I kissed her forehead warm, humming, alive, and stepped onto the bridge. It dissolved beneath me. I fell, not into darkness, into memory. I stood in my childhood home on Mars Colony 9, rain hammering the dome, my father's voice sharp with disappointment. You'll never be more than a mechanic, Chiron. Stop dreaming. Then in the barracks on Nix-9, watching my squad vanish in a flash of ion fire because I hesitated just 1 second and froze. Then in a syndicate den, signing away my pension for a bottle, telling myself I didn't deserve better. Then alone in a derelict freighter, whispering to the void. No one would miss me if I disappeared. The figures weren't illusions. They spoke. My father reached out, hand shaking. You could have been great. My squadmate, charred but smiling, said, why didn't you save us? My own voice, younger, weaker, sobbed. You don't deserve love. I wanted to run, but then I heard her. A small, clear voice, cutting through the storm. Papa, not from outside, from inside. Lumi's voice in my mind. You are my home. I stopped running. I turned to my father's ghost. I'm not trying to be great. I'm trying to be hers. To my squadmate, I carry you, every day. To my younger self, you do deserve love, and I'm giving it now. The chamber shuddered. The ghosts bowed. The bridge reformed. I walked back. Orithra watched, her ancient eyes unreadable. Lumi ran to me, wrapping her arms around my legs so tightly I stumbled. You came back, she cried. I always will, I said. Orithra nodded slowly. The stone accepts you, but the trial is not over. She raised her hand. The heartstone above us dimmed, then shattered. Not violently, gracefully. Fragments of crystal rained down. Each one a memory, a hope, a future. One struck my chest. Burned. Not with fire, with truth. I gasped as knowledge flooded me. The heartstone wasn't a weapon. It wasn't even a relic. It was a seed, the last seed of the Velani world tree, capable of growing a new cradle of life on a dead world. But it needed 2 things. A Velani soul to guide it, and a human heart to ground it. Because humans, for all their fragility, were the only species in the galaxy who could love without knowing why. Lumi wasn't just choosing a father. She was choosing the soil for a new beginning. Orithra's form began to fade, her edges dissolving into stardust. The Dominion knows where we are, she said. They've tracked the stone's resonance. They bring the Devourer. I frowned. The Devourer? A machine? Lumi whispered, clutching my hand. It eats songs. Orithra's voice grew distant. It was built from the ruins of our first world. It runs on stolen Velani memories. If it reaches the seed, it will consume the last echo of our people. And your daughter's light will go out forever. She turned to me one last time. You are no longer just a father, Chiron Voss. You are the guardian of tomorrow. Then she was gone. Only her staff remained, floating gently down into Lumi's waiting hands. The cavern trembled. Outside, the sky turned red. Not from sunset, from engine fire. The Dominion had come. Not with skimmers this time. With a ship. A monstrosity of black alloy and jagged spires. Shaped like a spider made of nightmares. Hovering over the desert like a god of ruin. From its belly, a single figure descended. Not in armor, but in flowing robes of crimson. His face unmasked, calm, almost gentle. He landed before the hatch. Chiron Voss, he called, his voice amplified, smooth as silk over steel. I am Overseer Drell. I do not come to destroy. I come to negotiate. I stepped out, Lumi behind me, the staff humming in her grip. What do you want? I asked. Drell smiled. Peace. The Heartstone seed is unstable. It will consume her. We can extract it safely. Save the child. Use the power to rebuild not just your kind but all sentient life. Imagine it. No more war. No more hunger. All because you let us help. Lumi trembled. He lies, Papa. His heart is quiet. No song. I believed her. But part of me wondered, what if he was telling the truth? What if I was endangering her by keeping her close? Drell saw the doubt in my eyes. He pressed it like a wound. You're a salvage hunter. A loner. You don't know how to raise a child, let alone a cosmic heir. Give her to us. We will give her tutors, protectors, a future. I looked down at Lumi. Her eyes were wide, scared, but not of him. Of me. Of me saying yes. I knelt. Do you want to go with him? I asked softly. She shook her head violently. No. Papa is my song. That decided it. I stood. Get off our world. Drell's smile vanished. Then you leave us no choice. He raised his hand. The Devourer uncoiled from the ship's underbelly. It wasn't a robot. It was a cathedral of sorrow, 10 meters tall, forged from twisted Vellani architecture, its limbs moving with unnatural grace, its core a vortex of screaming faces, lost Vellani souls trapped in agony, their songs distorted into weapons. It didn't walk. It unfolded, like a flower of pain, and its voice was a chorus of weeping. Lumi screamed, the staff flared, but she was too young, too scared. The devourer lunged. I shoved her behind a dune, grabbed the plasma wrench and charged, not to strike, but to distract. Hey, over here, scrap heap. The devourer turned. Its eye, a single weeping orb of black crystal, locked onto me, fired. Not plasma. Silence. A wave of anti-sound that made my ears bleed. My thoughts scatter. My very soul feel thin. I fell. But I laughed. Because I remembered. The wrench. The Vellani alloy. I slammed it into the ground. And sang. Not with my voice. With my heart. I thought of Lumi's laugh. Of Solara's sacrifice. Of Orethra's trust. Of Mars' reign. Of frozen squadmates. Of every broken thing I'd ever tried to fix. And the wrench, imbued now with human memory, answered. It erupted in gold light. The silence shattered. The devourer recoiled, its stolen faces wailing in confusion. Lumi, seeing her chance, raised the staff. But instead of attacking, she sang. A new song, not of power, of forgiveness. The faces in the devourer's core stilled. One by one, they turned toward her. Their weeping softened. Their eyes cleared. They remembered, and they chose. With a final, harmonious sigh, the souls within the machine let go. The devourer collapsed. Not in pieces, in petals. Black metal turned to ash. Ash turned to soil. Soil bloomed with silver flowers. Drell stared, his face pale. You didn't destroy it, he whispered. You freed it. I stood, blood in my mouth, wrench in hand. We don't take, we heal. He looked at Lumi, who now stood beside me, her glow gentle, her eyes full of sorrow. For him. She could have ruled galaxies, Drell said, voice breaking. And you made her a gardener. No, I said. I made her a child. He turned and fled. The ship vanished into the stars. We were alone, but not for long. 3 days later, as we planted the first silver flower in the glass dunes, a ship landed. Not Dominion, not Syndicate. A small, weathered freighter with a painted sun on its hull and a woman in patched armor stepping out. Her hair wild, her grin wide. Kyron Voss, she called. Heard you're raising a miracle. I frowned. Who are you? She tossed me a data chip. Captain Riel. Free clans. We've been looking for the Heartstone. Not to take it, to protect it. Lumi peeked from behind me. She sings, quietly. Riel knelt. Only when I remember my daughter. Lumi walked to her and placed a flower in her hand. Riel's eyes filled with tears. That night, under twin moons, we sat around a fire made of singing wood. Lumi asleep in my lap. Riel sharpening a blade that hummed like a lullaby. And I realized this wasn't the end. It was the first page. Because somewhere out there, the Dominion still plotted. The galaxy still burned. But here, in this desert, a new kind of world was growing. One built not on conquest, but on choice, on songs, on a human man who once thought he was nothing, and a blue-skinned girl who knew he was everything. And though battles would come, oh, they would come, I would face them, not as a soldier, not as a hero, but as a father, with a daughter who could turn silence into stars, and a family that sang louder than war. We buried the last of the glass dunes under vines that hummed when the wind passed, and Lumi named them Papa's songs. Riel stayed, teaching her how to mend broken circuits with lullabies, and I taught her how to fix my boots with duct tape and stubbornness. The Heartstone seed now blooms in our courtyard, its petals glowing with the faces of those we've loved, and those we've saved. No one comes to take her now, not because we're strong, but because we're quiet, because we sing, because when the stars grow loud, we hold each other tighter. And every night, as twin moons rise, Lumi whispers, Papa, you're my favorite song. And I, who once believed silence was safety, finally know. I choose her heartbeat over every galaxy.